The majority of Labour MPs voted for an amendment on the EU Withdrawal Bill which gives MPs the right to vote on any changes to the final Brexit deal at the end of the negotiations. But a passionate Leaver lambasted the party for stabbing Barnsley's working-class communities in the back. The audience member said, "We are constantly being told by these elite politicians," and she, pointing towards Nicky Morgan, has committed a really treacherous act last night against the Conservative Party. But the lady on the other side, referring to Shadow Business Secretary Rebecca LongBailey, is supposed to be in a party that should be defending the working-class communities that this town is, and the party is tending toward the single market. BBC The passionate Leaver said Labour had stabbed the working class in the back, which is unrestricted migration, and that is what this town overall voted Leave to stop because it damaged the working class communities. SHE's worse than Nicky Morgan in effect, and her party is doing more damage to these communities if we keeping to hearing from that Keir Starmer about the single market's on its way back. You're stabbing us in the back if you're gonna carry on with those treacherous rebels. And when he says about parliamentary sovereignty, the people are sovereign to put the representatives in Parliament. The cavalier Brexiteer added, "We've made our decision, we know why we made it. I know you think we're all thick up north, but I remember voting on my ballot paper and it said Leave Remain." Friday, January 20, 2017. Nick Griffin attacks Jack Straw's father. "My father was in the RAF during the Second World War while Mr. Straw's father was in prison for refusing to fight Adolf Hitler. It didn't say." Turn over to question 2. Do you want the hard Brexit or the soft Brexit? The audience erupted into stormy applause and cheers for the impassioned speech. Shadow Business Secretary Rebecca LongBailey also voted in favour of the amendment. She said Brexit is going to happen and reiterated that the vote was not to stop it from happening but to give Parliament the ability to scrutinise the final deal. Ms. LongBailey replied to the Leaver, "We're quite clear that Brexit is going to happen." The audience jeered and moaned at this comment, cutting her off mid-sentence. Friday, November 24, 2017. Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko is welcomed by the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker. She regained composure and said, "We want a deal that puts our..." The Barnsley resident interjected, "Drop the single market and get on with it." Question time. Presenter David Dimbleby implored the man to let Ms. Bailey finish her sentence. She continued, "Over the last few weeks it's been very rarely reported in the media about the amendments on the EU Withdrawal Bill, but the Conservatives voted against Labour's amendments to make sure workers' rights were protected. They voted against amendments to make sure our environmental issues are protected, and they also didn't look at certain parts on crucial industry that affect areas like Barnsley or Salford, where I'm from, where if we did not get a good deal from the EU, we will be on our knees economically." BBC The audience erupted into stormy applause and cheers for the impassioned speech, but Mr. Dimbleby persisted with the Brexiteer's question. He said to Ms. LongBailey, "But just stick with his point. He said he voted out and Labour wants a single market, easy immigration. What is it about vote leave that you accept?" The Labour MP replied, "We want an economic arrangement with the EU so we can trade freely. In terms of free movement, we recognise that coming out of the EU meant that will end." BBC Keir Starmer said he wants easy movement of people. Labour's Shadow Secretary of State for exiting the European Union said on Sunday he wanted easy movement of people and a deal similar to being a member of the single market. But members of the European Economic Area such as Norway are members of the single market, pay into the EU Treasury and have free movement of people. But Article 112 of the EEA agreement, which has been triggered by Liechtenstein, allows an emergency brake which curbs free movement of people.